Good morning. I am Linda from Happy Place Homestead. It is a glorious morning here in central New York. The colors are in full bloom, but they're also been blown away, but it's still absolutely gorgeous. There's something even beautiful about the leaves on the ground and the sound of the rustle of the leaves, you know. The cool, crisp morning. It just is, it's delightful. I love it. Our daughter Ella goes to school, actually to school, 2 days a week these days. And that's hard enough. Getting up in the morning is tough. But of course, as soon as I walked out the door, what was it? It was a gang of naughty little animals. All the sheep and goats were out. The fact that the sheep were out was quite amazing because like they can't climb the fence the way the goats do. So that means there must be a pretty significant break in the fence in order for the sheep to be out. I don't know why we have so much problems keeping animals in the fence. I mean, at least the goats. I mean, I understand that historically, by the record, most people have a hard time keeping goats in the fence, but we seem to have an exceptionally difficult time keeping goats in their pen. If I had anything to do with it, they'd be gone. But as soon as I'm done filming this video, I'm going to be inside rallying the troops to get them out there to get these animals back in their pen. But that's not what I wanted to talk to you about this morning. I wanted to talk to you about this, my garden. I'm so excited. I have an update I want to share with you about it. Over the last couple weeks, we've been working on finishing this garden. Now, of course, we're not going to actually get it completely done before winter for a couple reasons. One is simply we're not going to have the time. And two, there's almost no point in completely finishing the garden at this point because we're not going to be able to use it throughout the winter. But I want to have it as much as prepared for spring as possible so that I don't have double the work to do in the spring. But the other reason we're not going to be able to finish this garden this year is because we simply cannot find lumber. So the only place that we have been able to find any decent lumber has been through our Amish neighbors. Now, if you've seen some of our older videos, you'd see that we had befriended an Amish fellow named Jacob, big surprise, and he has done a lot of work for us. He built our barn, he built a shed for us, he did our decks, but he moved. And so it was time for us to befriend a few more Amish people. And so we have met a guy named Andy, and then there's Toby, and then there's Noah, and then there's Aaron. And we have been hunting these poor men down, trying to get wood from them.
You don't want me to get out.
I don't want to get out. It's too cold. This is the second car that has pulled up to deal with picking up their lumber. And there's another car back here loading up the scraps as well. So, I mean, he has 4 customers here today dealing with lumber needs. So, it's crazy. We're all trying to get our last minute builds in. So we've made several trips to these different Amish families trying to get lumber in piece by piece by piece. And so to do the fencing took us several trips just to collect enough lumber. And the reason we only have 3 beds now is because that's all the lumber we can find. I'm hoping to be able to find more before the snow falls so that I can at least assemble hopefully a couple more beds. Oh, you spoiled. I'm so grateful for this pickup truck. It has had its work cut out for it since we've gotten it. It carried home our sawmill, and it has carried home multiple loads of lumber from our Amish friends. Chris also managed to get a hold of really cheap wood or free wood. So there's always scraps left over from when they're working on their lumber, and so they sell those scraps really cheap or for free. Aaron, he just says, I'm gonna throw them in this burn pit. You're welcome to come take anything that's not burnt. And so we have, and we're gonna use a lot of those longer pieces, hopefully as siding on future buildings, because we've learned to accept Joel Salatin's saying. We've embraced it fully here on this homestead. Good enough is just perfect. And so we're going to use the cheapest local resources that we can find in our building right now, and it will be some of these wood scraps as siding for our buildings. And if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but it will work, and it will, I don't know if it will keep animals in, but hopefully it'll keep them out. Chris has also gotten truckfuls of smaller pieces of these scraps, and he's going to plan on using those. We can use those for bonfires. I've also used quite a bit of those for putting into the beds of my garden. So I want to tell you about my garden beds. So what I've decided to do is they are 20 inches high, 2 by 10 boards, and because they're from the Amish, they're true to size. And then they're about 10 feet long. They're not exactly all the same size because when it comes to length dimensions, I have found that the Amish are not as precise, which is okay. And we trim them up to whatever size we want them to be. But they're 20 inches high because, one, I'm getting old and I want to grow old here, and I want to be able to save my back and not have to bend over into the ground or too low in order to tend to my garden. And so this way, with the height that they are, I'm able to not only not hurt my back bending over, but I could actually sit on the side of them and do some work. Now, because they are 20 inches high and 10 feet long, that's going to be a lot of dirt. So what we have done is that we have filled the lower part of these boxes with logs and twigs and scrap pine lumber that's not treated, and just all this kind of wood, so that it takes up bulky space within the bed, but it also, as it decomposes, it will add nitrogen back to the soil, and it works as a moisture collector, so that the bed will stay I don't know, it'll say moist better. There's a German word for this. I think I'll put that German word right here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I will butcher it. But anyway, this technique says that you pile decaying logs and trees and bushes, not bushes, but branches and whatever. You can just pile them into a pile. You add dirt over top of it, and so that you're making this mound type of idea, and it locks in moisture. So it does the same idea. It decays and adds nitrogen, and then it also it keeps moisture in. And so it's not only a good way to fill these beds, but it's also a good way to help the beds and hopefully the growth of my food inside the beds. So here's the deal. I woke up yesterday morning, which is when we did this, but I was stressed because I was kind of worried about how we were going to actually manage to level these beds. The ground inside my garden is extremely rocky, extremely firm and hard, and not 100% level. And I think there's still a few tree stumps kind of in the way. And I was worried how we were going to get them leveled because they're heavy. And thankfully I have my boys and my husband to help do all the heavy lifting, but it's still, you don't want to just move them around all the time. So I wanted to kind of get the ground ready and get them in place. And I also wanted to put weed barrier underneath them. So I woke up a little anxious of how we're going to do this. But it really came together quite nicely. But before we worked on the beds, we worked on laying the 4x4 barrier that's going to go around the pavers that I'm going to be putting in the garden. Now this 100 square foot space that I'm creating in the garden is the place where next year I will build the greenhouse. But this year my goal was just to get the pavers in and get it settled for the year, and then next year build the greenhouse. But to do that, I wanted to have again, because the ground is so rough and hard, I didn't want to have to dig several inches down into the ground in order to lay the foundation for these pavers. I wanted to build it up, and so I used these 4x4s in order to do that. But same issue with the beds. We had to get the 4x4s level, and so there had to be some digging involved. But there again, I was amazed at how quickly it came together. So I'll update you when I have more done on that space. After doing the little square, we went on to the beds, and because we had kind of had practice with those 4x4s, putting the beds level on this ground was not at all as difficult as I thought it was going to be. It was work, and it was annoying. It involved a lot of digging, but it came together quite nicely, and I'm so pleased. I sat in here last night and just was so grateful, so filled with gratefulness that this garden is going to be a huge aspect of my happy place here. But not only because it's beautiful and I'm doing something I love to do, like digging in the dirt, but it's going to provide for my family, I hope. Even though I don't have this track record of being the best gardener, but I'm going to learn.
It's like every day. Where are my animals? Oh, that literally just scared me, actually. There's this bag. It's for emergency moments only, like now, but they decided it was for breakfast.
They're eating my Halloween decorations. I don't think you're going to make it till next year, girls. You're going to end up in freezer camp. Come on, girl. Come on. The Pied Piper. So far, that's my update on my garden. Slats are finished. Beds are in. I have a start on my platform for my greenhouse. I still have gates to do. I have an arbor to finish. I have more beds I'd like to build. The list is gonna go on forever because I want to put in pavers. And I mean, this thing is going to be just beautiful. I'm at one point, but it's going to take a little by little by little. I think that idea of having to wait for something and not being able to do something completely at one time is a hard lesson for me. But that's life. That's the life that we live in right now, the way the world is. We can't get lumber. We can't get supplies. Our family is struggling under this burden of this pandemic by it literally wiping out a year's worth of income for our family. But we're gonna make it through, and it's gonna be better in the long run. But having to wait and having to accept things in segments and chunks, it's just hard for my personality. But I know it's going to be good, and I guess I just have to learn to be patient. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for joining me here on this beautiful morning. Thanks for tuning in to our channel. We appreciate it. We ask that you will like and subscribe, spread the word. We need your help. We do need your help.